Yeah, and then other than that, there's a couple of other little things I want to talk about. I realize I've talked a bit about Piers Morgan over the last few while, but the more and more I'm sort of watching him, he's popping up on my feed. The more I'm kind of, he's bizarre. It's a bizarre situation that he gets on these people to have like a panel conversation. But like I put up that the thing the other day, I don't know if we did it on the show or I did it on Twitter, where like a 23-year-old basketball analyst who's voted in one election was talking about, in my lifetime, this is the most serious election there's ever been. She's a 23-year-old basketball analyst who's voted in one election, and she's giving us her lifetime experience, whilst there's like 60-year-old men off to her left panel who have been talking politics for 40 years, but she's giving us her lifetime experience of voting in elections after voting in one. So it's a strange thing. He's probably trying to do almost what all of us in sort of independent news are doing, because you do see people talking on his show who are podcasters and independent news people. So you see people not coming from the CNN studio to there. It's from their setup like this, which is kind of cool, but it's also very commercial. And I don't know, there's a strange mix in podcasting and the kind of thing that we're doing. And then to put that into a $1 million product and try and make it feel like it's supposed to, yeah. Anyway, sorry. He accidentally asked on a very, very good guest. It was a mistake, because whilst he tries to put himself out there as I'm just a journalist, his framing is always pro-Trump. His framing is always pro-Israel, no matter what he says. And he got Brian Tyler Cohen on, who we've had on the show clips a few times before. And yeah, doesn't go well. And I've got a little mashup of his to show you as well. I've talked a lot there, Chewie. Is there anything else you want to throw out there? Anything you want to
no, I think
with?
you covered everything and all things all at once. Look, it's not a story that we're going to talk about tonight. Thanks for that, Pat. It's not a story that we're going to talk about tonight, but I am going to urge. I dropped this in Discord earlier tonight. It is a fantastic read, and I encourage people to go and it's a reasonably long article, but I encourage people to go and find it. It's this one on the Herald, and it is the result of the much reviled public interest journalism fund. But it's a story of a farm up north that has a historic past site on that was taken from Hapu because of $221 of unpaid rates back in the 60s.
Wow.
And sold to farmers. And just the story of the land, the story of the people, and the story about how it was returned to the Hapu.
Yeah.
It is a phenomenal read. And you'll know that one of the things that I always bang on about is, geez, it'd be great to have some context around the story.
Yeah.
I have not seen an article with more context given of the history of everyone involved and how this happened and how it's ended up where it is today and what it means. It is just a phenomenal read. Go and hunt it out. I urge you all.
Cool. That sounds exciting. Seeing you've mentioned a little story, yours is incredibly interesting and serious. Mine's a bit more lighthearted and good news. Living in Taupō is a young couple. I think they're 19 years old each. 19-year-old couple who have worked at Pack and Save and saved up $140,000, and they've just bought a $750,000 house with lakeshore views. How cool is that?
Oh, it's pretty cool, Pat. But do you know what I always do when I see these stories?
What's that?
You look for the hook.
Right.
What's the hook? Where's the privilege? The privilege is always buried. The fact that their dad is a big mover and shaker at foodstuffs. It's right at the end of the article.
He also,
he's also as a property from them.
He also has a property investor. He said that they say in the article, I watched it, that he owns several of his own houses. But
and they live with their parents for $100 board a week. Like, good on them. They have saved a phenomenal amount of money.
140 grand. That was their deposit.
But you can't do that without some serious help.
Yeah, and also we don't know how much of that 140 grand is a gift from a parent or whatever as well. But still, you know, we always talk about the other side of it. We always talk about the no one can get into housing, no one can do it, no first home. You know, yes, I agree with you. Chewie, look, the reason I own a house today is my dad had the capacity to lend me $35,000 for a deposit for the first house, which we paid him back, but then that appreciated to the next one, that appreciated. Without that, to be really fair, I'd probably still be renting. So I acknowledge that's happened with me and it's probably happened with them as well, but it's still good to look at them and go, now they've got to work hard to keep it. And yeah, they seem like they're savers, and 19-year-old couple going for it. Kudos. I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to have a look at also another story about Oranga Tamariki today and the Abuse and Care Commission or inquiry, because we're being told that more children are being uplifted by Oranga Tamariki today than almost ever before. It's kind of a strange thing when we talk about abuse and care, what used to be. But if the system's not sorted out now and more kids are getting uplifted as we speak, then that's a concern as well. We'll do that second, because if Harry's due to be to us 9:30ish, then that might lead up into then having a talk to him about it. So what we will do to start off with, Chewie, is let's do this conversation around Mr. Piers Morgan and his show. Mm-hmm. So Piers had a couple of guests on. They had, what's her name? Nazi Barbie? Probably not fair to call her that. But she is, I keep forgetting her name. What is her name? I can't remember. It'll say it as it's going through. Oh, there we go. Tommy Lahren, who is,
it's been a while since I've heard from her.
Yeah. She used to be the Fox News darling, and then she mentioned some kind of comments about, abortion. It should be a woman's right. And then all of a sudden she was deleted from the conservative talk, I think. But what I wanted to show you her comments first, because her comments is what the right is doing in America at the moment. The right in America at the moment are losing their mind over Joe Biden not running. And I was watching a podcaster, Florentini, I think her name is, and she said in another one of these conversations, isn't it tough for the opposing baseball team when they put a new pitcher in, and they complain because they'd spent all their time prepping for a right-handed pitcher, and then they put a left-handed pitcher in, and all their plans go out the window. And of course, none of this matters because no one is the nominee until after the convention. So it doesn't matter what they were preparing for, and they're all saying is wrong. And impeachment articles have been pulled up against Kamala Harris and all sorts of things. But I wanted to play hers first, just to show you. It's not very long. Hers only about 60 seconds. This is what the right's doing at the moment. I don't know how they think it is a winning formula, but they're basically screaming, that's not fair. Joe Biden should be running. That's pretty much all they've got at the moment.
But we're expecting to hear from the current president tonight. I hope that he'll clear some of this up. But if, in fact, he does speak tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern and he tells us that he dropped out simply because he thought he was going to lose, well, that's, again, another notch on the belt for the party that believes in democracy and they want to.
So apparently it's undemocratic to put a better candidate in. So if he's only going to drop out because he thought he was losing, that's apparently, according to Tommy Lahren, undemocratic. Not sure how she gets there. She does say the words, though, Chewie, which means something.
Well, that's, again, another notch on the belt for the party that believes in democracy and they want to uphold it at all costs. I mean, dropping out 100 days before a general election because you're losing doesn't exactly scream democracy to me, Piers. But I'll tell you.
It means you don't understand democracy, love. Sorry.
Tell you this, he owes the American people a lot of answers. Vice President Kamala Harris owes the people a lot of answers. What did she know? She apparently has little lunches with Joe Biden often. She's obviously seen the cognitive slippage. So we need to hear from her too. And we can't just move on. I know that Democrats want to just move on to 100 days of.
She's literally saying Republicans will not move on past Biden dropping out. We will not move on. She's literally saying it.
And we can't just move on. I know that Democrats want to just move on to 100 days of Operation Coconut Tree Brat Kamala, but we still have a lot of questions and we deserve answers. They subverted the entire primary process. They should be in the hot seat for that, Piers.
So this is what the right's doing. The right want to spend time debating how dare Joe Biden drop out, and now Kamala Harris, the presumptive nominee, is spending her time smashing Donald Trump. And here's the other thing. I always thought if I was ever on a panel like this in this situation, sometimes you see yourself there, you could just simply go, you guys are correct, right? Joe Biden was forced out. Heavy hands were laid and Joe Biden was pushed out the door. And what's your point? You think you're going to win on Joe Biden shouldn't be there. I mean, Kamala Harris shouldn't be there. Joe Biden should be. Because even if what you're saying is completely correct, you've now got to focus on Kamala Harris. And for some reason you can't. And Chewie, there might be some reasons around that.
I think the most devastating revelation there is that the vice president has lunches with the president.
Lunchy lunches.
I,
Apparently they're lunchy
I,
lunches.
I can see why that's so absolutely devastating to the Republicans' case.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. I've seen this comment. I've even seen, you know, a friend of mine on Facebook who's in the States. He kind of floated up something similar, sort of going, well, I don't agree that this is the democratic process. And it's like, dude, this is how you get Trump. Like, you don't have to, like, is she better than Trump? You know, that's what the contest is.
Yeah.
And if you want to give away some of the Democratic time to put a better candidate forward, put a better argument than Trump is, and you want them to tear at each other for a couple of weeks while a bunch of candidates fight for it this close to the election, well, yeah, sure, but that's how you end up with Trump.
Yeah. And just remember, when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time. If they were like, I'm so glad Joe Biden dropped out because now it's going to be an easier path to a Trump victory, they wouldn't be complaining. Like, why are they complaining? What are they actually saying? They're trying to find any reason to put forward an argument that shouldn't be Harris. That's it. Why not? Because they know. They know Harris is a harder beat, even with all the, you know, the positive vibes from the world that Donald Trump's got recently with the assassination attempt, even with all of that going for him, that Kamala Harris is a much harder beat. And so they're looking for a way. I don't know who they're selling this to because it's only their base that's going to buy into this.
Just before we carry on.
Yep.
There's a couple of people watching that are trying very, very hard to get through the auto moderator.
Okay.
And can I just give them a wee tip? Calling the two of us spastics probably isn't going to go through. Nor is calling every left voter with a rotten brain not going to work. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to scream at your TV otherwise. But if you want to debate, maybe bring something a little bit better.
Or get on Discord and we'll talk to you shortly. Look, okay. Okay, perfect way that you always introduce these unwittingly to get into the conversation as it went on to part 2 with Brian Tyler Cohen. Now, it's like the right's going culture wars, unfair, culture wars, unfair. And the left at the moment is going fact. And it's exactly what he does here to Piers Morgan.
Brian, it seems to be a question of unity. One trick that Kamala Harris missed in her speech, it was not a bad speech at all. But one thing she didn't do, she didn't allude to the assassination attempt on Trump. And it's only been 9 days since someone tried to murder Donald Trump and actually shot him in the ear, killing him by a quarter of an inch. Would it not have been a smart move in between calling him, you know, a sexual predator and a con man and a fake and blah, 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 very ad hominem stuff? Would it not have been a smart move in terms of unity had she just taken a moment to acknowledge the assassination attempt and say how pleased she was that he survived it? Something of that nature.
Piers, I find it so bizarre that the onus is always on the Democrats. It's always on the adults in the room to create unity. Where was everybody for the last 6 years calling for unity when Donald Trump was president? And, you know, as far as the violence is concerned, I feel like any effort to try to pin, again, the onus on Democrats in terms of lowering the temperature in this country is just a testament to the fact that the Republicans are graded on the curve. Remember, it was not the Democrats. While we're talking about political violence, it wasn't the Democrats who laughed at Paul Pelosi being bludgeoned with a hammer. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who called for military tribunals for Liz Cheney. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who laughed at a kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer. That was Donald Trump. It wasn't Democrats who called for General Mark Milley to be executed. That was Donald Trump.
I just look, when you look at Tommy Laren's picture there, all I can imagine inside her brain is that's all I can imagine, all I can see.
Wasn't Democrats who posted a baseball bat photo with Alvin Bragg and threatened death and destruction if he was charged. So in all of these examples, Piers, it is not the Democrats who've done this. It's not the Democrats who've validated the use of political violence as a tool in this country. And it shouldn't be on the Democrats all of a sudden to be the adults in the room.
All right, Brian, to a point, Lord Copper, as we would say in the UK, right? It is the Democrats who for 8 years have screamed that he's Adolf Hitler. That's fairly violent rhetoric.
It's actually not true. We showed this. It's not true. Like mostly this is coming from podcasters, comedians, and announcers are likening him and his actions and the words he's saying to things that Hitler said. Right, that's mostly what it is. Whereas on the right, it's all the Republican lawmakers, or the governors and senators who are calling people on the left groomers and pedophiles and stuff. So this is a line from Morgan that comes out several times, and it's infinitely inaccurate.
You're comparing him directly
no.
to an
Absolutely
absolute genocidal maniac
if
who
Donald
murdered
Trump,
12
Piers,
million people, including 6 million Jews in a Holocaust. So when you do
Oh,
that,
come on,
that is
Piers,
violent
get off
rhetoric.
it.
Piers, if Donald Trump acts like a fascist, it is not the Democrats' fault for calling him a
Well,
fascist.
you're saying he is,
That is
he
his
is
behavior.
Hitler? He is Hitler?
No, absolutely not. But I'm saying he does act like a fascist. He does want to consolidate power in the executive branch. He does want to send the military into American cities. He does
So
want
you have
to
no
terminate
problem
the
comparing him to
Constitution.
Adolf Hitler?
Just doesn't listen.
I am calling him a fascist. That's what I'm doing.
So he just doesn't listen. And like, what can you say? And yes, I saw someone there say MAGA Barbie's looking well pissed. You know, when you accidentally get the wrong guest on, and he's done it several times, that's what comes of it. I want to show you one other thing, Chewie. I made this today. You know I made it because it's got our branding on it. This is a compilation from 2 shows of Piers Morgan. It's the one, whatever his time is, the one that was yesterday's and the day before. See if you can hear, it's quite subtle. See if you can hear over these 2 shows, and just watch how many times this imagery comes up. I think it's 4. Who he's trying to get the attention of and where he's trying to get clout from. You ready?
Okay, Vinny Ashana, Donald Trump rang me on Saturday night. I just got to New York. I did a hit on Fox News. He was watching it. But they still didn't do anything. And they allowed the president to walk out. I spoke to Trump on Saturday. And, I mean, I spoke to him on Saturday night. But when I spoke to him, he was, I got to say, icily confident. You know, he was very candid about that when I spoke to him on the phone. You know, I spoke to Donald Trump on Saturday night after he appeared at the comeback rally after the assassination attempt. But as he said to me on the phone on Saturday night when we spoke, in terms of his campaign, obviously, and he said this to me on Saturday.
I know it was subtle. It was hard to pick up on. But did you kind of get that it seems that perhaps Piers Morgan is trying to attract a particular base to think he's sort of cool because he's not an unbiased journalist in the middle. He sets and frames things always to benefit the GOP, and on the other arguments to benefit the Republic. That was 2 shows. How many times he said it? And if you notice the screen that had Cenk Uygur in it, I think he said it 4 times in that conversation that he spoke to Donald Trump on Saturday night. Do you get the vibe? Is it like, do you see what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder what ear he held the phone to, by the way.
Yeah. So poor old Piers Morgan, it's almost like he's trying to make independent news, but he's doing it with a very large budget. And I know it sounds weird to say, but it doesn't seem to really work. You know, it's like he got all these people swearing and yelling and making like podcasters do, and then you've got the BBC, proper BBC kind of, you know, not these BBC, but you know what I mean, voice trying to pull it all together. It's like putting Lord Sumption into the circus ring and trying to corral all the lions. It just doesn't work. Doesn't work.